good day, and welcome to another great episode of It's All Interventional. Today, we're going to go over a topic that often gets strange looks from those in the department. It's an area of the hospital that is vitally integral to the workings of how charging and billing are performed, but it's not always well understood. So I've invited a great friend of mine, Kelly Hall, to talk about the Charge Master. All right, Kelly, thank you so much for taking your time today. It's really exciting what you're going to be sharing today. And as you know, this is also a topic that I've had my hands in for years. But let's start with the basics first. What is your background? How did you get to the position you're currently in?
Well, it's been an interesting career. I've been with the same organization for 37 years, and I started out as an X-ray tech, cross-trained in CT, ultrasound, moved into management. That accounted for probably the first 20 years with this organization. I had an opportunity to use my clinical background and move into the IT department, supporting PACS and the RIS system. And during that process, that's how I kind of got introduced to building charge items. Yeah. So after that, they began centralizing departments. Those all fell underneath the billing and finance arena of our organization. And so I moved into those departments as we began centralizing charge processes.
Fascinating. All right. So this topic is on Charge Master. So exactly what is a Charge Master and what does CDM stand for?
CDM stands for Charge Description Master. And my experience has been that it's basically functions as a database, and it has required fields that both tie the financial aspects of what you want to put on a patient's claim as you've charged your procedures. And sometimes it is linked to the ordering side of what the clinical department sees as they either place orders or as they place their charges.
All right, fascinating. And is this only for interventional departments?
No, not at least not my experience. My experience has been that every clinical department has a charge master that they work from as they charge their procedures or services that they provide.
So then how do you manage the CDM for those interventional departments?
We have a centralized group here that serve as gatekeepers. And what their job is to make sure that every item is compliantly built, matches the CPT it represents, the UB or revenue code that needs to be applied to it is also built in there, along with the CPT, the price, and that is connected to the order that is used on the clinical side.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, is the managing of the CDM for interventional, is that standard for someone in your role? Is the role that you have something that we would see in every hospital facility somewhere?
No, not necessarily.
All right.
Our processes and departments, the way they are structured, I don't think that's necessarily standard.
If I have a procedure with a charge code, that's going to be, because you said you applied the code, the UB number, the price, that's what I'm going to get paid, correct?
No, not necessarily. As a matter of fact, almost never do you get actually reimbursed and paid what you have charged or the price that you have loaded. So there's reimbursement factors by payer that actually play a part in what you get paid. Some codes are bundled, which means you need to charge for them because you performed it, but that doesn't mean you're going to get separate payment for it.
All right. So with that in mind, why would I care what I charge if it's not going to get paid for it anyway?
There's cost reporting is the first thing that comes to mind. Cost reporting is where you should be responsible within your organization to want to charge for everything that has cost you during your operations or during your supplies as you perform the procedure. The reimbursement is factored in over time from that cost report. And so if you fail to report all of your costs, that's not factored into future pricing of your reimbursement.
So what I'm doing is a cost. I got hourly wages, I've got room, I've got machines and supplies, you're saying. So I'm charging for that. My payment is separate, but you just said that the charges can affect future reimbursement. How does that work?
Well, they collect data in order to figure out what your reimbursement rate should be. They're constantly collecting data, which impacts you downstream and several years later. So if you are ineffective at reporting all of your costs because you choose to not charge for certain things, or you don't keep your prices up to date, you don't move with the market of pricing, then you have somewhat undercut yourself years later when they go and they look back over 5 years to determine how much has the cost for doing these procedures gone up or gone down, and then they adjust reimbursement. So if you haven't played that full cycle appropriately, you could hurt the end product in the future.
Wow. So my charges today have a relation with my reimbursement for today's procedure, but a major impact for down the road as well.
Potentially, yes.
Wow. Okay. All right. Now, I was going to ask you about all procedures getting paid. You said something about bundling and other things, like not everything gets paid. What wouldn't get paid, and how is that determined?
So when you perform procedures, multiple reportable procedures by CPT, sometimes it has been predetermined that while you're in that vessel or while you are doing a certain amount of work on this patient for this procedure, that while you are there, you go ahead and do other work, that they're not going to pay you any extra. So that's where bundling comes into play, and it's by CPT, and sometimes it can be by what CPTs are reported together.
Now, who determines what you are going to get paid, what you're not going to get paid because it's bundled? Does a hospital determine that, or the physician?
No, that's determined by the CPT rules and guidelines set by AMA.
Gotcha. All right. So Medicare's putting this out.
Medicare is putting this out. So one might ask, well, does that apply to all payers?
Next question.
Well, in many senses, payers end up following Medicare on a lot of these payment rules and issues, including, conflicts and things of that nature. So not all payers, and not for every service line, for instance, will they follow Medicare, but the vast majority have moved to that model over time.
From what I'm hearing from you is the charges or these are things that really should be very important to those folks that work in the cath and IR and OR. They shouldn't try to not brush it off. It's not my area. The charges are very important to your work and how it's going to pay out in the future.
Yes, it's important to the business.
Gotcha. Because it's still, it's patient care, yes, but we're still a business. We still have to pay the bills, and that helps
pay the bills, and you want to be able to provide that same care and keep your doors open going forward. So yes, you definitely, there's correlation.
What are some of the questions that you get from departments about charges?
Most of the time, it's the understanding of the CPT. Just clinical folks in general, if they've not ever been exposed or worked with charging and CPT and coding, it's very foreign to them. They may understand clinically how to do it, how to assist the physician, and what they are seeing, the results they get, but they don't understand it in the language that the CPT manual is written.
All right, a couple more questions here. What are things that your department can do to assist the IR and cath departments to become more efficient and effective in what they're doing?
A couple of things come to mind. First of all is if you can relieve them of being responsible for like the gatekeeping of the charge master, making sure the annual changes go in correctly and appropriately. And they don't have to worry about that while they're trying to care for the patient. I think that's a huge win. So for my organization, we have a gatekeeper team, like I had mentioned before. That part and piece of it is managed by someone that's not at the facilities. And they will work with the facility when needed. So you had also asked earlier about, is this just for IR? Well, no, it's not. It's for every clinical area. So they will work with the department to educate them about the changes, to ask questions about how the orders are going to be used, what the workflow is, and be able to understand how's this item going to be used. Are there front end changes that need to be made to make it compliant and to make it be used, charged compliantly? So that's one pressure point, I think, that can be relieved from the clinical staff with a centralized approach to charge master compliance.
All right, thank you. Is there anything that you would request from a department to make the charge master and charge aspects more accurate and successful?
The front end workflow of their orders, irregardless of what your process is, which items are orderable, which items might be, our process gets kickstarted with a generic order, and then it's charged and coded downstream. But the clinical use of the process we put in place is pertinent for the patient to even hit our radar, so to speak. So the same is true if you are using every item as an orderable item. It's very important that the ordering side and the clinical front end workflow sets you up for success, irregardless of what your process is downstream for the charging or the coding. You've got to have that front end process very clean, very consistent. And the completion of those orders many times places the charge. That's true for my organization as well in some other clinical areas. You order this, you complete the procedure, and then you complete the order, which drops the charge. And those points and them understanding how that happens in their system is pertinent to them being able to follow a workflow that keeps this revenue cycle moving.
All right, well, that's fantastic. As we've just had our short conversation, there's probably 20 other questions I thought of that I'd like to ask you, but we might do that on another video, a follow-up. I thought this was a fantastic snapshot of charge master and its relevance for the departments. A lot of good information, but we could really drill down on some other things that could be very helpful, I think, for you. So thanks so much for your time. It's very, very enlightening. And I hope it's enlightening for you watching as well out there. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. And leave some comments below. I am interested in what you have to say. So stick around. There's more great stuff on the way, but I gotta go for now. I'll see you next time on It's All Interventional.